Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have DC Pierson. He's a comedian and content creator. He used to be with the comedy group Derek. Welcome, DC.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you read a couple books as well, which were pretty cool. Give me a rundown, because I really like your Instagram stuff. I think the Build the Rat Beach was a good one. I'll let people that'll be an exercise for the reader to go find that. But tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, I was in a comedy group called Derek. We made a bunch of stuff online in like the very like Paleolithic days of internet comedy, and then from there, I wrote a couple of books. One is called The Boy Who Couldn't Sleep and Never Had To, and the other one's called Crap Kingdom, both in the kind of like speculative fiction, coming of age, funny space. And then I wrote for a lot of award shows for a bunch of years. I acted in commercials. And then, the video that you're referring to is a character that I do on like Instagram Reels and TikTok and stuff like that, sometimes called The Architect Who Designed New York, where I just thought it was a fun idea to basically play this pretentious character who is taking credit for literally everything you see in New York, like by design. And so that was just kind of a funny, fun, surreal way to just take little weird observations that I would make, or like things that I would film walking around New York, and like contextualize them. Then most recently I had our comedy group, Derek, made this movie Mystery Team that went to Sundance back in the day, and then it's gained kind of a cult following, and it recently got re-released by Lionsgate on like a 4K Blu-ray like remaster. So that was kind of exciting. It's exciting to me that people are still interested in the movie. And then I'm based in New York, but actually right now I'm in LA writing for an animated show that one of my cohorts from that comedy group, Dominic, actually co-created. So that's really cool. I've never written for like a narrative show before, so I'm enjoying it.
So you get to do what most people want to do all their lives. How's that going?
I mean, it's going well, insofar as like I get to go today and like do that for my job. And our life is composed of days, and this is one of them. So I'm really happy that I get to do this like today. But in general, I think like for most creative people and most people in general, it's sort of kind of a constant struggle to like piece things together and jump from one lily pad to the next. And like, for example, like I was talking about, like wrote for a lot of award shows, acted in commercials and stuff like that, but kind of since like 2023, like sort of post the previous like SAG and WGA strikes, some of that stuff had like kind of, the pace of that had slowed for me to a little bit of a drip. And so last year, up until like literally a month ago, I was actually working in advertising, like social media advertising. That was very interesting and challenging, and like used a lot of my skills, but was definitely more sort of like corporate world type gig than I was used to. And on the one hand, that was like kind of challenging to my identity as a creative person, but then it was also cool because I got to flex, and then also I was grateful for it because it's a job and it, allows you to be alive, pay rent, etc. So I think it's like all of those things are like a constant, constant balance, constant like trade-offs.
Yeah, I think there's loads of people. Like my buddy, the guy who does Tom the Dancing Bug, the cartoon. He works at a financial company doing I think like analytics or something like that. So everybody I know who's in a creative space, except for maybe a few folks who are really, really good at teaching, have always had to kind of not fall back, but grab that corporate job. How do you avoid A, the burnout of that job, and B, how do you maintain your creativity when you're writing all day for somebody else and you want to come home and you want to write something funny for yourself or something interesting for yourself, and you just don't have that energy?
Yeah, it was a challenge, frankly. Like, it was something that I would what was cool about this job is they did hire a lot of people who similarly have non-traditional, non-advertising, or creative backgrounds and worked in the entertainment industry. So like I was paired on several accounts that I was on with another guy who was a writer and an actor as well. And we would kind of be accountability partners for each other, or we would say, okay, I'm going to go this weekend and I'm going to write this thing and I'm going to really try, I'm going to like just do this and I'm going to have blinders on and I'm really going to try to like do that, if I get a chance, and then would look forward to coming in on Monday or texting him and be like, oh, I did it. I finished this draft of this thing, or he like finished a pilot script that he sent to me and I couldn't wait to read it and give him notes on it and whatever. I think like it's not without, like needing to kind of actually make like a constant headlong effort to not just do the job, because the job is very all encompassing and you want to do a good job at your job. That's why they're paying you. So it helped to have other people that wanted to do that. Like I wasn't just sort of like in a silo.
So you would find somebody internal that you're working with, right? So somebody who has the same mindset as you, that you can share your outside ideas with as well.
Yeah, completely. And we sort of like shared the same language and have similar backgrounds. So that was helpful.
Do you ever work, you worked with the comedy group, but do you ever work with like, I don't know, just like an offhand group where it's just like, I don't know, just a bunch of people in the chat room or something like that?
No, I haven't done anything like that. I've definitely like taught some classes and stuff like that over the years. I did have a really fun experience. A friend of mine, Colby, who's a woman who used to work in the tech space, and then she left that a couple years ago. She put together something with some folks in Fort Greene where she was just like, yeah, there's just people like on my block and in my neighborhood who want to sort of be doing like continuing education stuff, but everybody's busy, everybody has kids, and it's just hard to get people together to do something like that, or they feel like, oh, I have to commit to like some 8 or 12 week class that I'm gonna have to bail on 3 weeks in because I get too busy, and then I'm gonna feel guilty. So she put together a thing where it was just like these little almost like sampler classes where you could do like little one-off things and go to her house. And I taught a comedic essay class, like kind of like essays that you would write, like Shouts and Murmurs in the New Yorker or McSweeney's or things like that. And I had taught a class on that previously, so I did a little kind of like one-off like capsule, like 2 week thing, and it was really fun. Where it was just like me and ultimately like 5-6 other grown-ups, just like in Colby's living room, and would give them a writing assignment or kind of do a little lecture piece. We would read a sample, and then they would like free write for a while, and I would just like listen to the crickets in her backyard and think like how cool this was that we were just like opting to do something creative that was not people's main thing, and really enjoyed stuff like that. And I do think that like environments like that can be good for people. It's like hard to find a balance of not putting too much pressure on yourself, being realistic about what everybody's limitations are, because we're all grown-ups with responsibilities, but then also like, yeah, sometimes we find ourselves in situations that are not sort of like feeding that whatever that thing is inside of us that made us all want to do whatever it is we got into in the first place. So I thought that was cool. I really enjoyed that. I would like to do more stuff like that.
What did bring you into comedy and into writing?
I really liked, I was just a theater kid, like simple to say, like I did like some plays in like elementary school, and then there was like summer theater programs that you could do like through my public school district. And then my best friend from growing up, his sister was a couple years ahead of us, and she was in high school when we were still in middle school, and she went to this public high school that had this like really robust theater program. Went to that high school, got into all that stuff, and just like let it completely take over my life. And I would come to find out years later that there was probably some emotional stuff from my childhood that I was subsuming in like work as early as high school. But it also kind of, just like there was always as much of it as I ever wanted to do. And that really directly led into when I applied for colleges, I went to NYU, and I got to study like dramatic writing, which is like writing for TV and film and stuff like that. And that really kind of, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to study, it kind of forced me to think about like, what do I really like? And that was always like, writing was the main thing, where it's like, I really like acting, I really like performing, I really like all these other aspects of it. But if you really took everything else away, writing is always the thing that's the Venn diagram of what I'm good at and what I like.
How do we survive AI?
I don't know.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
No, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think I have like the romantic answer, which is just that, like, we're people, and people, like, I don't know, things that are made by other human beings, and
Mhm.
seeing the human experience reflected in art is really important to us. But also, like, yeah, I don't know in the sort of like short or medium term how any of these things will pan out, because AI is just able to churn out such a like volume of stuff that looks like the types of things that we like to consume,
Mhm.
that we like to watch and read. And I also think that, like, there are people who have always wanted to write a book, and this is a way to say, like, well, I prompted it, and then, well, I didn't have time to write the whole book, so here it is, and here's a sort of like a
Mhm.
plausible looking cover. Plausible is the word that I keep coming back to with AI, where it's like, if you kind of scratch the surface on stuff that was really sort of like heavily made with AI, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny necessarily, but that it is like passable enough in a world that we're just completely inundated with information and media, and there were too many choices already out there to begin with. The truth of the matter is, like, I don't know in the shorter medium term how it will affect creative careers, other than, like, golly, they already had a lot of pressure on them and now they have even more.
Mhm.
But I do think that, like, it will, sort of a cliche thing to say, but, like, hopefully place a premium on authenticity, which is sort of a lame word, but is the first word that comes to mind. Because I do think that when I really think about media and people who make stuff, that I have, like, developed deep parasocial relationships at certain times in my life when I
Mhm.
really needed that. It's because they were people who were having a weird sort of maybe sometimes difficult life that they were putting directly into their art. And yeah, a server farm can't do that. So hopefully that will sort of, like, as I think it will put, like, financial and, like, pipeline pressure on a lot of the ways things get, like, made and the ways things get funded. I do think that in terms of, like, the one-to-one relationship between artist and audience, it might really affect the artist in terms of being able to get compensated for it and be able to
Mhm.
do it as much as they would like. But in terms of that sort of, like, relationship, I do think that that is not something that's going to go away, because I don't think that computers really have anything to do with that.
Interesting. I mean, that's a non-cynical approach, right? It's to a degree. You're assuming that you're cynical on the side of the computers. You're basically saying the computers are gonna screw it up at some point, and we'll notice, which is also saying a lot. Are you that idea of the pipeline, the idea of getting cash out from your art? I mean, that's gotten harder and harder, and I mean, I can see that as well. When doing this is basically a labor of love to a degree.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? What do you think is the solution there, or is it just keep grinding?
The solution to
To to
how do people make money on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
with
While
their
while while
creativity?
routing while routing around the AI, right?
Right. I do think that people, I don't know, I would look at something like an example that I would use, or something that I really admire, is an institution like Dropout, which was founded by, like, former College Humor folks, that I knew from back in those days, like Sam Reich being the main one who founded it, but tons and tons of writers and performers who were sort of, like, involved in that world and then transitioned onto this platform where they're creating shows that are, yeah, kind of intensely, like, human. They have, like, sort of game show formats, but they really do showcase, like, these individual comedians and their their artistry, for lack of a better term, like what they do. And they've really been able to develop, like, a really robust fan base who is desperate to pay for things where they know that the money is going to support the people involved.
Hmm.
And I think that's really cool. I can't speak for, like, the sort of, like, mass market, mass audience, but I do think, and I'm also hoping that there are enough people out there who kind of see the way that their dollars can change the lives of the artists that they like, and that they want to, um, yeah, continue to make that happen. So I think, like, hopefully platforms like that continue to grow and more of them sprout up. I don't know that they will, but, like, I do think that stories like that are encouraging.
Hmm. No, I mean, it feels like that. They always said that the long tail, right, is where the money is going to eventually go to. So it's going to be you have your mass audience is always looking for the, I don't know, Katy Perry or whatever. But then folks like us can make a little bit of that cash on the back end. Um, do you what's the process now, do you think, for a young creative who wants to follow in your footsteps? Is it the same thing you did? Is there something different, do you think?
I feel like it's so different now than when I was starting that even if it wasn't, I think I'm older enough now to know the perils of being like, here's A, B, C, D, exactly the steps of how you do anything, which is, of course, A, what everybody wants, and B, really good for clips on podcasts on the internet to be like, here's the 5 steps. And I don't know exactly what those are. But I do think that people that are doing it now and starting out are probably just so much more. I mean, I know they are because I worked with a ton of them on this advertising job. Like the tools that are built into literally all of our phones now and things like that, that are able to, for all the ways that they're tied up to some sort of like some like social platforms that can be like troubling in terms of like how they devour our time and attention. Those individual people out there doing it are really, really like skilled and native to those tools. And I think that that gives them like a huge leg up. And I think that there is sort of a breakdown. I don't know, I was talking to a friend of mine whose daughter's applying for college right now. And she's applying for this program where it's not just like theater, oh, you're going to go act or whatever. It's like tech theater and acting and playwriting and directing and music and like all of these different things. And I think that that is sort of where like it makes a lot of sense to me because I think that like people that are starting out now are more naturally polymaths than anyone that came before them. And I think that's really good because I think in general I've found in my career almost like both internally and externally this real push to like specialize. What's your niche? What's like your exact little thing? And I just think that most creative people don't really naturally fall into that. Most people are like dilettantes to a degree. I think most human beings are. We want to kind of like do and play in a lot of different spaces. And so I think that people that are starting out now naturally have that. And I think that like to steer into that is really cool. But then I also think too, there is still some value, I would say, as somebody that's not this way. And if you're starting out and there's like 6 of you, you know, and your friends and we all want to do this, we all want to whatever, there is some value in that specific sort of at that time in your life and development into specializing and being like, maybe I will be the person that gets really good at editing. Maybe I will be the person that is the photographer and sort of like takes pictures of everybody and gets really good at photography. Maybe I will be if I know a bunch of people that really want to like rap or something, be the person that gets really into making beats. Like I do think that there can be a lot of value in being somebody where if you're in an artistic community, being the go-to person for blank specialized skill. I do think I say as the person that's not that exactly. Like I like envy that from the outside. I think there's a lot of value.
Well, maybe like a lighting designer for like EDM bands or like bands or whatever. That might be.
Yeah,
that seems.
totally.
I just met somebody like that. That's all they do. So your view is that with Derek, for example, did you have that sort of like compartmentalization that one set of people were good at the back of the camera and another set were in the front, or how did that work?
Yeah, so 3 of us were more like writer performers, myself, Dominic, and Donald Glover, who's obviously gone on to be Donald Glover.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And then Dominic was best friends with and roommates with this guy, Dan Ekman, who was also in the film program, and he was like our director and editor. And then his girlfriend at the time, now wife, Maggie McFadden, was like our producer. And so we had between the 5 of us the ability and with the like limited tech that was available at the time, like the ability to go and make sketches, like film sketches that looked and better than a lot of stuff that was out there at the time, and also like the visual style of sort of like served the premise of the sketches, and that really I think like set us apart at that time, and also just like luck of when YouTube and stuff was coming out. So I do think that sort of having some of that specialization really helped us, and then especially when we went to make our feature film Mystery Team, like if Maggie, who's not like was not a producer sort of in the production sense, like for the love of the game, it was out of necessity. Mm-hmm. She's more of a writer and like more on the creative side, but because she had specialized in that way, because Dan had specialized in terms of like the filmmaking and the editing side of it, although he also is more of a like 5-tool player, like writer person, and all 5 of us wrote the story, and then 3 of us were in front of the camera. that enabled us to do that. I think if we had to bring in somebody from outside, convince them of our vision and what we wanted to do, or convince somebody like, hey, can you be the sort of like physical producer of all this? It just wouldn't have been the same product if it had existed at all.
I mean, you would also presumably you'd have to pay that person, right? Like
right.
Much more. I mean, in this case, once somebody takes on that role, you don't have to pay them. What if somebody from, I don't know, from another comedy troupe that's a modern one comes to you and shows you, I don't know, entirely AI generated skit, right? What would you say to that?
I think there's like
with the same quality, right? I mean, we're not
right.
talking like it's like two robots like burping.
Right.
It's like something that's of value.
I would say I miss two robots burping. That's something that I kind of like really miss that AI has, among the other sort of like larger existential and environmental and concerns that AI raises, obviously. I think one of the things that I genuinely miss is like, oh yeah, when you used to be able to go and like put text into a website and then it would do a little sort of robotic kind of like, I am a computer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or like the things like, I think like genuinely when I see somebody that's still making a like janky Photoshop meme as opposed to a sort of like, well, you could just like come up with an idea and then put it into AI and generate that image. I feel like the janky Photoshop meme is always that looks like it was made in MS Paint is almost always more charming than whatever. There's like a smoothness and a slickness to AI that I just think like, I don't know, like I think like when I look to a lot of the stuff now that is genuinely sketch comedy and is the most popular, a lot of it is like videos that people make on TikTok. And it's not that TikTok is not rife with AI generated stuff. It is. But I do think that a lot of the things that are the most fun, that connect with people the most, is like somebody in a room, somebody in their bedroom with a t-shirt on their head. And that's kind of what a lot of sketch is now. And if the idea is funny and the person's funny, it's funny and people like it and people connect with it. So I think like for myself, like I know like the slickness, what AI can generate and like how quickly it can do it. And I understand why people might find value in that. I just kind of think like we're robbing ourselves of some of the, just a bunch of people running around, friends running around with a camera having fun of it, where it's like, again, I'm not in the same position as somebody that is coming up today, so it's easy for me to say do X instead of Y. But to my taste, like that's what I like, and I think there's a lot of, I think you learn a lot of stuff doing that, and I think a lot of the reason that we do what we do is because it's fun to write 10 dumb jokes that are going to be in the background of something that nobody's probably ever going to see. And you could absolutely be like, well, I need to do that really quick, so let me just ask ChatGPT to do it. And I understand why somebody might do that. I just think we like lose something, and we as artists rob ourselves of some of the just like, yeah, love of the game factor, for lack of a better term, when we outsource that to AI. It's like I would rather come up with 10 dumb toilet puns that are going to be in the background that nobody's ever going to notice, and be like, I know I did every single one of those. But that's me.
All right. What is
media? You seem skeptical.
I'm not skeptical at all. I'm enjoying it. I mean, like, if you're going to do like if you're going to produce content well, I mean, then by all means it should be done that way. I mean, it's so easy and cheap to do it now, right? So I mean, my whole setup here is fairly expensive, but not that expensive, and you could recreate the entire thing fairly cheaply. So why depend on AI and spend $40 a month on whatever service when you can just, I don't know, shoot yourself with a t-shirt on your head or whatever. So the final question, what does the media look like now? You're writing for a show, and you produced a feature film, and you're writing books, but where are eyeballs going, and what was the advertising agency looking for when it came to like media production?
Yeah, it was very like when I was working at that advertising job, it was very social media focused, and that was like really, really fascinating. Because it was like, if you're sort of studying like, what is the algorithm doing? What is it feeding people? What you're looking at is like the agglomeration of a gajillion people's attention and eyeballs and like lizard brains and what they're drawn to and what they want to see. And that was fascinating and weird and informative, and sometimes depressing, and sometimes like really kind of like hopeful and beautiful, and also just like wildly enlightening, and something that I hope to, it's entirely possible that I will end up back in that world. But for now, while I'm sort of like on this side of the entertainment industry and the creative industry, like for like literally today, just trying to take as much stuff as I learned from that and apply it to what I want to do, and sort of like drawing hopefully eyeballs to the things that I want to do or things that I care about. But in terms of where things are going, I don't know. Like, I do think there is a odd, like, it feels like we're maybe approaching a point of like burnout with sort of like video-based social media as it's currently constituted. I think people are, myself included, are starting to realize like how much time we plow into it and how much it captures our attention, and how we might like to spend that time in other ways. And so like some of this I think is maybe Pollyanna-ish for me to say like, gosh, I hope one day we're all going to wake up and be like, no more phones. We all now just want to like go to a concert or listen to cassettes or whatever. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think things evolve in that directly, but like they just revert to the way they were before.
Tell that to my vinyl collection that I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that there is going to be more of an opportunity for things that feel like alive, for lack of a better term, whether that's like literal live performance, whether that's media that does capture the experience of, you know, sort of like the way man on the street videos are already popular on Instagram, or you know, just like interviewing some random person on the street in New York, where there's just like, yeah, AI could fake that, but like it just, there's a certain sort of like fun, I don't know, something very like, I don't know, I you know what I'm saying? So like, I think that a space is already opening and will continue to open for people to go places and experience things. And I think that there's going to be part of that is like big experiential stuff. And that's cool. Like that people will put a lot of money into. And then I also think that there are, and probably if we're saying this right now, it's already happening, things fomenting that we don't even know what they are, but that are the equivalent of what CBGB was in the 70s or something like that, or what Seattle was to the rock scene in the 90s. Like, it's probably already happening, and the algorithm is not picking up on it, you know, like
we're too aged to
yeah, sure. That's a part of it too. And so I think that's really cool.
All right. So you're hopeful that there's still going to be CBGBs in the world. Maybe it's a chat room. Maybe it's a channel. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah, I think so. We don't even know what it is. And I think that's really neat, because I think that means that like young creative people that give a great big shit will have a place to go and find each other. And I think that's really important. It's neat to have those spaces. I think people can absolutely find that online, and that's cool too. But I think that maybe that it's also happening in places that we don't even know about, and nobody's taking pictures of it.
Okay, good. So something's happening. Where should people find out what you're doing?
I am on Instagram, where they're probably even seeing this already.
Yeah, exactly.
But and Instagram.com/DEECEE Pearson, because I got Instagram way late. And then also my books are still out there and are really good. The audiobooks are good. I read them. And then, our movie Mystery Team just came out on Blu-ray if people are physical media folks. Or I think any of the versions you can now like rent on digital platforms like iTunes should be, or, you know, Apple TV should be like re-upped to the new remastered version. So it's out there, and it looks better than it ever has. So.
All right. Perfect. Well, DC, thank you for joining us. This has been great.
Thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
All right. This has been Keep Going. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.